Good morning, everyone. I'm really excited to have you join me for this interesting, very interesting program with Steve Cox and Chelsea Cisneros from Espanola GloveWorks. And a little background, I was given their name by Linda Warren, who has actually tried, she's actually using their gloves as we speak. So I'm going to have Linda introduce Steve. And Steve will introduce Chelsea, who is one of the students who is working with him. So, Linda, take it away. You have about 30 seconds. No, a little more than that.
Okay, well, hello everybody and welcome to Twitchy Woman. I'm very pleased to be here with Steve and Chelsea. Chelsea was born and raised in Espanola, New Mexico, and she just graduated from Espanola Valley High School. This fall, she's going to pursue an electrical engineering degree at the University of Denver under the Davis, New Mexico Scholarship. So congratulations, Chelsea. Steve Cox just in terms of his credentials, he has a bachelor's and master's degree in electrical engineering and a PhD in mathematics. He was a professor of computational and applied math at Rice University for 28 years. And during that time, he also was an adjunct professor and is currently he was in neuroscience at Baylor College of Medicine and currently is a professor of engineering technology at Northern New Mexico College in Espanola for the past 10 years. So it's my pleasure to introduce both of these great people to you.
So,
Thank you,
welcome,
Linda.
Steve. I'm so glad you're joining us. I have a couple questions for you, and then you can take it however you want to.
Great.
I would like Linda to talk about her experience as well a little bit. But how did you end up using the technology from Peter Tass? I think that's
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, he was all set to do some studies, and then it got cut off. I don't know what happened, and now it's back. I'm not quite sure what's going on there.
Right, right. Yeah. So it's I think that our first kind of slide is going to be the origin story, and I was and Chelsea was around f from the beginning. So it happened that a colleague of mine came to um, address Chelsea's high school class. I was involved in a high school class through a mentorship program I'll talk about at the college, and and I think like lots of folks that are out there looking for something better than just drugs or surgery, the Parkinson's patient in my hometown here had seen a Today Show episode of Tass's Glove. And with that colleague and I mean, she knew to kind of come to me because I had been running a kind of a STEM Saturday program at the library in my town just north of Espanola. And we were doing things like, building wheelchairs for kittens with broken backs and things like that. So we were doing kind of lots of kind of STEM projects for the public good, if you wish. Um, and she had seen some of the art projects my students had made, interactive things. And she just asked Steve, "Do you think your students could build one of these gloves?" And so so I then looked into Tass's papers, and I saw that we could use kind of off the shelf tools that I had been working on with Chelsea's class anyway. Um, and so it was slow but powerful, especially the connection that Chelsea's class made with this kind of elderly man, kind of a farmer, kind of suffering almost in isolation in small rural northern New Mexico. So there was something magic about the connection. Just being valued by teenagers had more than a placebo effect upon Brandon's well-being. Um, and then they were willing to kind of experiment with us as we developed a prototype that he could wear. But that's our so I don't want to. That's something I was hoping Chelsea could talk about because she was right there from the beginning, and also um, she had the connection to the participant and the participant's caregivers, which were pretty powerful. I can talk more about the technology and about the collaboration or better off non-collaboration with Tass's group as we go forward.
Okay. Linda, can you tell us a little bit about how you got involved with this? How'd you find out about it?
Well, I found out about the project through the internet, and some blog or something that was talking about, if you wanted to experiment or build your own glove or find somebody who was doing the gloves, there was some publicity about Steve's group. And so I clicked on that, and then they were talking about you could get a glove or gloves through this Espanola project. And I really didn't quite know what it was, but I clicked on it and I filled out the form and everything. And then a few weeks later, or I got the gloves, and I'm wearing one right now. And then I made contact with Steve, and I've been a part of their Zoom group. And as a sidebar, just so you know, Peter Tass is resuming with local people right now at Stanford. He's resuming his clinical trial study, and I almost qualified, but
Mhm.
didn't. So it just started back up. They were recruiting starting in July for Stanford. Um, but it's been very interesting being a part of Steve's group. He presents papers to us, um, and he talks about how the glove works and everything. And he's able to break down very technical terms in very simple language. So he's a really, really, really good teacher. And I've been a part of this group. Conwar, who was in the clinical trial with Peter Tass originally, comes on the group and now and then. And he's still wearing, now he's now wearing these gloves by Espanola, because the gloves that he had from Peter Tass broke. And he says they're just as effective. And he's been wearing the gloves, I didn't realize, for 8 years, and it's really made a difference for him.
Okay. All right. So, Steve, take it away.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Linda. Yeah, it's been super valuable to have someone with Linda's experience and communication skills, kind of guiding the kind of the progress as we develop the glove. And so let me, um, if I may, I'd like to just, well, I guess before I hog the screen and kind of give you an outline of where I want us to go, I just want you guys all to recognize Chelsea. So Chelsea, you can maybe go off mute and say hello to the group. Um,
Hi everyone, it's good to be here. I'm so glad that I could make it, and it's so wonderful to see you all. Um, I'm glad that we can be here to show you that there are other ways, and give you another sense of help regarding the treatments for Parkinson's. It really means a lot to me that you are all here. Um, so I guess we'll present now.
that's great. Thanks, Chelsea. Yeah, yeah. So I'll ask you to kind of come in and narrate the origin story, and then also interrupt and kind of go back and forth as we go deeper into the glove. And you want to talk about your experiences. Likewise, Linda. So if you anything you want to add, and I should say we're a small enough group, and so I hope that. It's in some sense it's an ambitious project, and we're as you maybe you see we're kind of flying under the radar. We're a student teacher group in kind of underserved rural northern New Mexico. Um, I'm pursuing kind of advice from lawyers and from business partners about what to do about this, but I see a huge kind of unmet need, and we're not trying to monetize on that unmet need. There was like really kind of just a vacuum of information. So the glove is exposed. Conwar's story is just if you haven't seen Conwar's story, I can give you a link to that. In fact, there'll be a QR code on my first slide that'll take you to our website that has a lot more information on it. But Conwar's story was so hopeful, but the trial was so small, but it still generated so much interest in something that was not a drug, was not surgery, and seems to have zero side effects. Something that could even allow people to diminish the drug intake over time. And so it's such a hopeful thing. And my students and I found that we could reliably reproduce these gloves for $125 a pair. And so that's what they're going for now. Um, and again, we're probably exposed to lawsuits by Stanford. I'm naive on intellectual property. I'm trying to trying to teach my students something about the entrepreneurial side. I'm hoping this might be something that they can sustain, especially as we grow this into an app that can sense kind of in real time without going to the clinic, can sense enough information to help tune the glove to each of your symptoms, right? So you know the cliche, right? I mean, if you met one Parkinson's patient, then you met one Parkinson's patient, right? So there is no there's no kind of prototype. There's an amazing variety within Parkinson's, even within an individual over the course of the disease. Um, and so that's kind of some a little bit of background. And now let me talk a little bit more about kind of exactly Espanola and where we're coming from and what we can deliver. So to do that, I'm going to unfortunately um, grab your screen. Um, And so, how does that, um, how's that look for folks? Can you guys see? Um,
Yeah.
you can,
Yes, we can see it.
cool. So Espanola GloveWorks. So this is my table of contents for this afternoon or for this morning, sorry. Um, an origin story. We've been at this for 2 years.
Mhm.
Um, and I would like to give you, for folks that aren't familiar with the glove, we got a quick flash from Linda. I might ask her to kind of hold those up to the camera a little bit more as we get into the simple glove demo. But also for the engineers in the crowd, I know there's at least one self-identified. Um, I really want to try to maybe demystify what's really kind of underneath and what's really happening underneath how the glove really works. Um, but then, of course, we're not really satisfied with how the glove is working right now. There's an opportunity to do much more. I mean, for sure to make it more robust, but also to have it kind of sense more data that can be used to tune the glove to the individual. That's going to be a mantra. I mean, it's so-called kind of closed loop control, and we'll get there as we go. But again, I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm a teacher, and I can't tell you how proud I am to share this Zoom space with Chelsea. Um, that said, I am an old white male, and I'm probably going to do way too much of the talking. So, Chelsea, please interrupt me on occasion. Um,
I'll try my
so,
best.
good.
You're
So, I'm interested in human development. In particular, I'm interested in student development. But again, the connection I saw between Chelsea and Brandon, our first participant, kind of just lit a fire, right? Because there are so many there's so many kind of artificial ways of trying to connect a teen to an elder, and it's just damn awkward unless there's kind of common ground. And how do you create common ground? And natural ways through family, but again, that's not so easy with 10 million people suffering Parkinson's worldwide. And so either the common ground comes through family or through some kind of shared problem solving. And this has the capacity to bring teens and elders together in some authentic way, and also a sustained way, in the sense that our teenagers need mentors. They need your social capital, and you need their expertise and enthusiasm and idealism about kind of tackling such a gnarly problem as Parkinson's. So what we're looking at is an early photo from maybe, I don't know, last Christmas or so. Chelsea, our glove lab didn't have any heat at that time, so you see our people wearing, wearing overcoats. So there's some old man in the back. Here's Chelsea out front, and she's the youngest person in that small group at that point. So Jeremy and Angel were high school seniors at that time. This is when Chelsea was a junior. And these two both graduated last year and have now finished their freshman year in engineering at University of New Mexico.
Mhm.
The three of them were being mentored by Hefet and by Anita. Anita and Hefet at that point were seniors in my electromechanical engineering department at my college, and they're both now full-time engineers at Los Alamos National Laboratories.
They really did help us a lot on this project since they had more experience with coding and also 3D printing.
Yeah.
I know Anita helped a lot with helping the little box
Mhm.
that lands on the wrist, kind of looks like a watch. And Hafet helped a lot with the coding since he was really, really, really good at it. Um, and I guess to talk a little bit about the way that we all interacted with each other, I remember that Angel and Jeremy were both kind of iffy about going to college. They weren't really sure what they wanted to do, but after we spent a couple of months together with Anita and Jafet, they kind of encouraged them to go into engineering and go pursue the degrees that they have right now. Um, and they also, like this project was fun for me. That's why I'm going for an electrical engineering degree soon. But, I didn't start off knowing any of this. We all just kind of taught each other. And, as Steve was talking earlier about mentorship from elders, talking with Brandon, that kind of connection, even if we didn't talk as often as we would have liked, we did get to see him in person, which was wonderful because it was so difficult for him to commute. Um, he was a wonderful person, and him being able to give us feedback on the glove and just give us feedback on how he felt on the way that we were helping him just really, really felt good. Because I guess you can also put it in the perspective of what does a 16-year-old girl have anything to do with Parkinson's? Um, like no one in my family that I know personally has it either. Um, so it's just like that kind of connection that I had personally with Brandon and Minna, which was his wife and caretaker. It really helped me realize how important it is to help other people. And then now that I see all of you guys here, I'm ecstatic about it, and I'm very excited that we can continue the project. But throughout the last 2 years, we've definitely had a lot of mentorship, and I've learned a lot of skills. Like Jeremy taught me how to solder, which we'll talk about later, and Hafet and Anita, they all taught me more on the technical end of things. Um, but yeah, Steve, do you want to talk a little bit about Mesa?
Yeah, I can but you can do that as well. And so, I mean, I guess just for folks, a little bit of information about where we're coming from. Um, yeah, so Chelsea's born and raised in Espanola. It's about 30 miles north of Santa Fe. Um, it's kind of it's bordered on the north and south by two pueblos, Oquewingue on the north and Santa Clara Pueblo on the south. There are kind of 19 pueblos in northern New Mexico. These are amazing places in the sense that these are folks that were, by and large, not pushed off their land by the U.S. They were pushed off their land by the tribes historically, and also by the conquistadors in the beginning. But they've come back to reclaim smaller bits of their property. Espanola is the biggest town in Rio Arriba County. It's the it's a county about the size of Connecticut. Espanola is about 10,000 folks. Um, the conquistadors came in 1595. That's a little more now seen as kind of the first kind of European capital in the States. Um, and so there are Hispanic families descended from, these kind of Spanish colonies that go back these 500 years. The Puebloans have been on these lands for 1,000 years. Our county is 80% Hispanic and 20% Native. And with that comes largely and I guess the land doesn't make for rich minerals, and the people don't make for good slaves. So it's been a neglected and kind of very special part of the States, I would say, for those 500 years. It's a place that's kind of retained a soul. It has not really been homogenized or golf coursified or ski jumpified as a lot of the other more kind of drop dead, gorgeous, obvious places in the West. So it's a place with deep trauma coming out of poverty, but also deep beauty and the soul. So I've never been a place as spectacular as Espanola. Um, so I'm really, really happy to be involved. My college is also in that town. My college is about 2 miles from Chelsea's high school. Um, we're the oldest Hispanic serving institution in the country. There's lots of things to be proud of, but again, lots of struggles. Again, largely based on being kind of ignored, being in the only kind of Hispanic majority state in the country, with a very small population, 2 million people altogether in New Mexico. That's a little bit of background about where we're coming from. Um, and I got to know Chelsea's class because there's a national program only involving 9 or 10 states called MESA, Math, Engineering, Science Achievement. And for me, it's kind of an engineering gateway. It's an elective or a club, depending upon the school. Chelsea School has two amazing Mesa teachers, and I've been
Yeah.
involved for the past 6 or 7 years in bringing college students into those classrooms to do kind of hands-on, mentor-fueled activities where we're really building things with computers and sensors, and we're doing 3D printing and design, all kinds of skill sets that we could use. Um, we turned out lots of kind of small things, but never something as impactful as the glove. But all that work was kind of preparation for the glove. There's also kind of a mis expectation of dealing with kind of with health equities or equity in general, but largely around kind of we're a poor community a long way from a medical center. Lots of people kind of suffering in silence. Lots of language issues, lots of transportation issues, lots of connectivity, Wi-Fi issues. So the fact that, and I hope now Chelsea can take this from here, mention how she got to know and Brandon, kind of something about the first glove, and then how Chelsea and her team kind of with these very ambitious teachers entered their kind of glove designs into international STEM challenges and came back with accolades and prizes and prize money. And then we can maybe close this slide, Chelsea, and I can maybe show people that the testimonial of our first significant participant impact.
Yep.
Our first patient,
Great.
Brandon, unfortunately did also have Parkinson's psychosis. He became violent and is not really able to keep the gloves on. Um, and he's since passed away. His wife Minna is really doing the lion's share of the work for us as far as
Mhm.
participant intake and participant communication. Um, and so that's
Yeah, she's been very wonderful to our group since we've met her.
yeah.
Um, but we'll talk a little bit about that later. I guess to introduce you guys to Mesa a little bit. Thank you, Steve, by the way. Um, so this is a club and like a class that I've been wanting to take since I was in middle school, but the school's just never put me into it. Um, and I remember the year, it was my sophomore year that I got introduced into that class, and we needed a project that would make a sense of equity in our community. And Steve did talk about how his colleague had come to him about the gloves, and so we decided to work on the Parkinson's gloves. Um, but basically Mesa is just a lot of engineering, and you learn a lot of problem solving, and you learn how to connect with other students and present in front of a bunch of people when you go to competitions. There's a couple that I've been to, but the most significant ones where we were able to present the gloves were the Governor's STEM Challenge and Mesa USA. I believe those are the only two. And then also Samsung Solve for Today. Um, but I just remember in one of the competitions, I think it was for the Governor's STEM, when we had presented, it was a big group of us, and this was when we had first started. So our first iteration of the glove was not the best. It wasn't very wearable either. We literally just cut a a cheap glove that you put on for the winter time and stuck some motors in there with Velcro and called it a day as fast as we could because these competitions come by very fast. Um, and so we presented it, and the judges really, really liked it. We placed every year that we've um, presented these gloves, we've gotten second place, and I'm pretty sure my junior year was it, we got first place in the technical pitch of it, where you have to write about it before you can even present your project to the judges. But anyways, for one of the competitions, one thing that is very prominent to me is when we made a judge cry. I don't quite remember. I don't think she had anyone in her family with Parkinson's, or maybe she did, but she started crying, and my group and I, we looked at each other and we were like, oh my goodness, we didn't mean to do that. Like, I hope that it is happy tears. But um, another prominent thing about those competitions was the judges, multiple judges coming up to us and telling us how amazing it was what we're doing, and how how good we were at being able to explain something so technical in very simple terms. coming that we are very young and again have really no connection to Parkinson's disease ourselves. But I remember a lot of judges telling us that they wanted to pick us. Because when the judges pick you, they give you a certain amount of money. These competitions provide the students with money if you end up winning. And they were just, I remember them just telling us that they would fight a lot over other judges and being like, I want to pick them. I want to pick them. Like, no, I want them. So I just thought that was really, really neat.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
I
no,
would add, Chelsea. It might be a while since many of you were at a science fair contest, but it's typically the it's not the job, but it's often the consequences. Judges make students cry because they're actually kind of challenging them or shaming them, right, or asking them why they didn't think about this, right? So
Mhm.
it's rare in my 40, 50 years of teaching, right, to see judges kind of break down in front of students. So sorry, Chelsea, keep going.
No, you're fine. Wow. No, that's a great way of looking at it. I've never really thought about it like
I was
that.
there. I got to see it, so it's
Yeah, no, you did. Um, but it was awesome. That also just really solidified it for me that doing this kind of work really, really helps other people in the community, especially a community like mine. Since Espanola, a lot of people don't have a lot of money. They don't have enough money or enough resources to go out of their way and get either diagnosed with Parkinson's or just find something that would help them with it. A lot of people go undiagnosed because they don't have the proper resources find to find out whether or not they do have it. So we're hoping that this project can also help our community thrive and also just be better overall with what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like the healthcare side of it.
yeah, and awareness and access, yeah.
Hmm. Definitely. Um, I think that's all I really have to say. But yeah, no, these competitions were mostly just kind of like a science fair kind of thing, and they were wonderful to participate in. I remember scrambling a lot the night before trying to perfect everything and make sure that it was great. I'm sure one of these years we will get first place on it if
Yes.
we get everything together and stop waiting last minute. But we've come pretty far, so I'm sure it's first place in somebody's heart.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, part of those issues. I mean, second place is nothing to frown at. And I literally
No.
have kind of constructed an A team of folks. And as you guys can imagine, the A team, this is not their only project, right? They're involved in sports and cheerleading and other service projects. And so um, these are all things that are just, as you said, the final slide on kind of student development. This is just kind of one piece, right? But it's a piece that, unlike a lot of those other activities, is connecting them to elders in the community and then elders in the larger community, um, which we need more of this. Yeah. Um, so I kind of wanted that. So thank you, Chelsea, for the student side, and also, anyone have any um, questions for Chelsea or I now, or want to hold them till later? Please don't hesitate to raise your hand or interrupt. It's not interrupting. I hope this is a conversation. I did so I think what you hear from Chelsea is that it was successful as a student project for motivating kids to learn a wide variety of skills. We had kids sewing and 3D printing and soldering and
Mhm.
programming. And these were not isolated activities. You cannot program something that's not going to fit in the box, and you can't design a box, that's not going to fit on someone's hand, yada, 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 right? So this type of kind of a 16-week, a semester long project that has all these components that have to fit together to have any kind of impact, or to be able to demonstrate this to judges was a formidable attempt, right? And that succeeded. And so you're totally justified in asking, yeah, but what was the result from people wearing these gloves? Like I said, our first patient was there was a big heart, but we were not successful in really. I mean, he wore them for a couple of days before he kind of shook them off. He was able to fall asleep with them on, so we saw at least that they weren't toxic. We weren't actually melting his fingers. These are just kind of light vibrations. There's no electrical stimulation going into the fingers. It's just kind of the cell phone vibration that you feel from your cell phone. Linda can kind of expound on this even better. I wear them for hours at a time just to, try to get in touch with what's happening. Um, but basically within a year, we did have our first kind of immediate success. And it's a strange thing, right? Because every Parkinson's patient is different. If you look at Tass's kind of clinical trials, he had kind of six or eight, depending on how you count in different parts of the trial. And a couple people in Tass's group had acute impact. Acute meaning, within 1 day of treatment, their scores were heading south, and their symptoms, were dramatically changed. Other people took months to get to that level. And so over a year ago, we had a kind of our first subject with kind of immediate impact. The singer-songwriter in San Diego hadn't picked up a guitar in 10 years. Overnight, his wife could then understand his jokes on first telling. And from caretakers, it's not so easy to ask your spouse to repeat something because the joke is lost somehow on second hearing. So on our site is this beautiful testimonial from Dave Grubbs and his caretaker. Um, I won't. I can flash it on the screen, but if you're curious, you can visit our site, and it's right there on our front page. And so this kind of double whammy of seeing that our hack of Tass's idea with off-the-shelf parts um, that we were slowly developing, having such a dramatic impact. And a year later, I mean, he's still wearing the glove and still making progress. And so that together with kind of the impact on students, and also a number of local foundations were helping us kind of helping me pay the students for this work and helping us buy new parts as we kind of got a better idea about what really could be working. We're not there yet on any kind of finished glove, but we're getting closer and closer.
Mhm.
So I'd like to show you something about how the glove really works, because I know that Tass has spoken into Sharon's group before, and that video is available. The Today Show video is, again, it is really, really well done, very dramatic. Um, but I would like to give you kind of and kind of look under the hood perhaps of the glove to really see how it might function, and how easy it is to show high school kids how to build the code, um,
Mhm.
to do the job. The rest is kind of manufacturing. So the real hard part for folks is understanding how to program the glove, right? And so let me head back to let me
I
grab
think
my,
showing this would be a lot easier than that piece of paper when I had to learn how to solder using the piece of paper and the wires. Um, Before we had started, I remember we had to do solder the board manually, but now we can just order them online instead of having to do it all manually because that caused a lot of problems. But
right, right. Yeah. So what we can, the
engineering for you.
students have really picked up this notion of miniaturization, right? Can we get it down to the size of a wristwatch?
Hmm.
Um, and that's led us to kind of sourcing lots and lots of parts from China, which under the current administration is been problematic and has raised our costs. Um, but so I'd like to give you a simple glove demo under the hood. So am I in fact sharing my screen? Can you guys see what I'm
Yeah,
looking at? Gotcha.
we can see
And
it.
so this is basically Tass's recommendation from a Frontiers in Neuroscience paper. And so Roman numerals 1, 2, 3, and 4, those are your fingers, friends. And along the horizontal axis is time. Okay. And each of these kind of red segments is a buzz, zzz, a motor buzz, a vibration. So here I begin, or in the sequence, I begin by buzzing your third finger for about 100 milliseconds, right? A tenth of a second. And then kind of nothing. And then I buzz your second finger, zzz, a tenth of a second. And then I buzz your fourth finger for a tenth of a second, zzz, and then your first finger. Can I call this an epoch? An epoch means a buzz of all four fingers. So there are kind of three epochs of buzzing and two epochs of pause, right? And so in the second epoch, I'm buzzing finger 1, 2, 4, 3. And the third epoch, I'm buzzing finger 2, 4, 3, and then 1. And so between epochs, there is a shuffling of the not of your fingers, of course, your fingers stay where they were, but we're shuffling which motors we talk to. to give them this buzz pattern. And
Mhm.
so buzz, 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 off, and then repeat, right? And each time there's a random reshuffling of these things per epoch. And and so I'd like to show you, like to demonstrate this with just some turning on some lights on and off to maybe to give you a feel for the period of the durations we're talking about and how quick these buzzes are or these flashes of light. Um, but even before doing that, I mean, of course, you should be curious about what does, why does sending these random patterns of vibration into the fingertips, how does that help you? How does that improve gait? How does that improve rigidity of joints? How does that improve your speech? How does that improve the control of your facial muscles or control or voluntary control of any of your muscles when you're just playing random stimuli into the fingertips? And so that's part of the genius of the sequence. I mean, the scientific answer is we don't know yet, right? We're
Yeah.
still working on that. Um, but the but kind of the evidence that Tass's group has accumulated is that in the absence of dopamine, the motor cortex is developing too many connections between cells. So it's not epilepsy, but they're basically things are kind of hyperconnected. And like epilepsy, cells begin to fire in synchrony, which were not firing in the non-Parkinsonian brain. So 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 hundreds of thousands perhaps of cells are firing in synchrony. There's a rhythm in the brain. And while those cells are firing, you can't use them for your own uses, right? For getting across the room, for smiling, right? For tapping your finger. You're not able to use those cells while they're being kind of entrained in this rhythm. And so Tass's discovery is that by playing random stimuli to the brain, we can begin to scramble those rhythms. We can weaken connections between cells. The scientific word is synaptic plasticity. Cells that fire together wire together, but also cells that don't fire together end up kind of pulling apart from each other. So, so you can imagine there is in your motor cortex, in your sensor motor cortex, there are places for each of your fingers. So playing these random stimuli into those fingers is a way to kind of decouple how your fingers were overly coupled in the brain. And by extension, other parts of motor cortex are also kind of decoupling. That's a general hypothesis. We don't have proof of that. It's not really fully ethical, right, to go into the human brain and begin inspecting synapses during these behaviors. Um, Information is being gathered by folks that are already under the knife, kind of being prepared for DBS and the like. But for these kind of finger stimuli, we have kind of indirect measurement about what's really happening inside the brain. But that's meant to be so. The idea is that without dopamine, you have bad rhythms, and these random rhythms are meant to descramble. Another metaphor might be noise canceling headphones. So there's noise going on in your brain by lack of dopamine. And this is canceling that noise. Okay. Um, and so how do we program the sequence into some motors, right? And so I've got a still photo here of a kind of a credit card size computer um, that that everyone in Chelsea's class learns to program starting in ninth grade or even sooner. This is about a $4 computer that has a USB connection, and then you can connect it to devices in the real world. Um, so early on in Chelsea's class, we made kind of a touchless soap dispenser for kids to have during COVID. We don't have a lot of high-tech things in our bathrooms at the high school there. So this technology allowed them to make kind of a touchless soap dispenser.
And Jeremy
So
helped with that project, right? Just to
yeah, that
mention
was
him.
championed by, in fact, by some of the early folks that moved into the glove. Yeah. So
Hmm.
um, and so there's a link here and we can follow. Um, and so there's an amazing kind of freeware to a sandbox for engineers or would-be engineers, and this could be as young as 5 years old.
Hmm.
So there, I've got something called an LED glove instead of motors, I put light emitting diodes connected to the computer, right? Um, and um, yeah, and so let me just let me play the live one for you here, right? Can you all still see that and try to zoom in maybe as far as possible?
Yeah.
And so we've got LED 1, 2, 3, and 4. And friends, I'm just imagining these are your fingertips, right? And instead of playing light in your fingertips, of course, I'm going to play vibrations. But just to show you kind of the real-time sequence, I'm going to press start. Okay.
And this program is also it's freeware, like Steve said, and it's very, very easy to use. Um, so it's not difficult at all. This is the way that he taught us the technical end of the gloves, as it shows it's a randomized pattern. And then it stops and then it happens again for the way that he just showed you on the pattern scale on the slides. But we use this program a lot I took his Intro to Engineering class at Northern, and we use Tinkercad a lot. There's a lot of other freeware programs, I'm pretty sure, but this one I think is probably the best if you're trying to learn new things for engineering.
Thanks, Chelsea.
Mhm.
Can you guys see the light pattern? Are you surprised at how quickly they're flashing? That's a tenth of a second. Um, and that's what Linda's feeling right now if the gloves are turned on. So a tenth of a second of a buzz, a very, very brief and depending upon, one's vocabulary, not an unpleasant sensation, right? It can lull you to sleep. Um, some people have called them musical, although it doesn't repeat, right? There's not a refrain or a chorus.
It's very
Yeah,
relaxing, actually.
relaxing.
It's
Cool.
Yeah,
almost it's almost hypnotizing.
that's great.
I see a
It's like
question from Bob. Yeah, Bob, can
Yeah,
you?
go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, did you measure the vibration? How are you making the vibration? What frequency it's at?
Yeah. So Tass recommends, so there's kind of based upon the receptivity of the mechanoreceptors in your fingertip, those things are most receptive to vibrations in around the 200 to 250 hertz, 250 cycles per second. So that's what I mean by the buzz. So the motor itself is vibrating, right? And so let me show you that, Bob. And so the motors we're using are actually these guys, right? These little vibration motors. They cost about 75 cents a piece, and and
Mhm.
and they're rated at 200 hertz, right? And so these kind of off the shelf. So Tass had an engineering group kind of re-engineer the entire kind of motor and its kind of connection to the fingertip using a company called Engineering Acoustics. I think he's got a different vendor now he's going with for the trials that Linda was talking about. But so we're sending the right frequency, whether we're sending the right amplitude, right? Whether the vibration intensity is kind of where Tessa's sweet spot. So for that, we have an app which I'll talk about in the next page. Um, and so I can actually plug these guys in, of course, and show you how they vibrate, but it's a little bit easier to see the lights flash. Okay. And so I think you can see in Tinkercad, right, we have all these devices that we can be using to kind of help kids kind of breadboard electronics right here in a white space before going on and breadboarding these things on a tabletop. Um,
Mhm.
and so any other questions about what you're looking at? And so I guess, yeah, just for the engineers in the crowd, there's a burst duration of 100 milliseconds. There's kind of an epoch. So it's what TOS calls TCR, the time for coordinated reset. And Tass found in clinical trials, of his small trials, that a burst duration of 100 milliseconds and an epoch length of 668 milliseconds, like three-quarters of a second, those were the sweet spot. And then all that happens is that we kind of shuffle the fingers for each of the patterns, and then turn the motor on for a burst duration, and then turn the motor off for the rest of that period of that epoch, and then turn on the next motor and turn it off. Turn on the next motor and turn it off, and then have
And
two quiet
Steve,
two quiet periods. Okay.
What was that,
So
Bob?
yeah, I was going to say, Steve, is it sort of a random pattern or is it some sort of orthogonal pattern that you're
gotcha.
using?
Yeah, it's random here, but is this big enough, Bob, to see where the code I've got highlighted, right?
Oh
And
yeah, I
so
can see it now. Thanks.
yeah, and so it's not it's I mean it's kind of it's not random is a complicated thing, right? So I don't mean to go down that kind of that rabbit hole. But it's not totally random, right? You have four fingers. There's only 24 ways to choose all four fingers. But this makes it as random as possible, as random as what Tasso is up to. Okay. So as we shuffle the fingers, I begin by choosing a random one kind of each time. Um, and Linda, right? And when I wear these for hours at a time, my brain wants to find the pattern, right? We're all kind of accustomed to finding patterns and things, and we like puzzles. And I cannot I cannot discern any kind of deterministic pattern as I'm trying to tune into my gloves. So
Great.
um,
Do you want to move on, Steve,
yeah,
to
yeah,
more of the glove development?
yeah. So let me talk about kind of so here is kind of what Linda's wearing right now or something like it. And so these are the custom designed fingertips that have been designed and printed in our glove workshop. These are little cable ties that are kind of velcroed through these kind of fingertips. And underneath the finger is one of those little vibrating motors, Bob, that I showed you in Tinkercad just now. Those motors, of course, have two wires. Those are snaked back down through a fabric chimney into some custom cables that go into the box. In the box is a smaller version of the computer I just showed you, um, together with an on-off switch, and together with on the back of this thing is a port that charges a 3.7 volt lithium battery that's in here. Okay, and that battery should last a long time. The recommended protocol from Tass is you wear this thing for 4 hours a day, and you charge it overnight, and that seems to be working for folks. This is mechanically working for folks. Um,
And you guys
there's
might be wondering why it looks the way that it does. It's not quite a glove. Um, but I think over time we've developed something that's less bulky. This is a lot more confined and a lot more condensed, which we assume would make it a little bit more comfortable. I've worn these gloves before and I find them way more comfortable than the first versions that we tried. And the 3D printed boards also helped a lot with the small little motors since we were having a lot of problems with them coming undone and ripping a lot when you were moving the glove, moving your hands, which the whole point of one of the main goals that we had for this was to make it as comfortable as possible and to help people be able to actually pick up a cup or, just grab things with their hands without it being a problem. So we wanted to really keep the palm open so you could also grip things. There was a lot of I guess under technical things that came into making the way that it does right now. But I guess just to make it a little bit more, just to describe it a little bit more, this is the last thing that I will say about this is like the the wristwatch, it was a really big box. Not like humongous, but it was very bulky and it is kind of really annoying. I don't have anything that can show you guys how it looks. Maybe it was like this big all around, maybe a little bit thicker because it had to hold everything. But we've been able to miniaturize everything, so maybe we'll be able to make it smaller then. But it's an interesting look. It doesn't look much like a glove, but it really did used to.
Yeah.
Um,
Our first one looked like an oven mitt largely, yeah. And
yeah,
so,
it
but
really did.
so Chelsea's right. The comfort is a main thing, but also, I mean, with a mind to our local community, we're also just trying to keep the cost down.
Hmm.
So we want it to be comfortable, but we want to be able to use off-the-shelf parts. And also, this glove is fairly fast to sew, right? So there's a chimney and a wrist strap, and the wrist strap has Velcro that kind of keeps it on the bottom of the wrist, and then Velcro that keeps the box, onto the wrist strap. And so right now, it's we're not exactly so we're close to there, right? So the most skilled of us can manufacture one of these gloves in 1 hour, including sewing, soldering, and assembly.
Right,
And
but
so,
before it took a while. It took a
yeah,
lot
yeah,
longer because it was a lot more fabric. And we were
hmm
also using canvas as the fabric since that was easier to sew. But we talked to Ed, an artist who also came to us about his Parkinson's. And he was like, "You guys should put patterns, make it less boring
hmm
and just more creative." And we were like, "You know what? That's a great idea." So we've
So,
been able to come with patterns.
Yeah, you can tell from we've done a ton of brainstorming over the past couple of years and gotten lots of feedback from kind of local folks that are wondering why we're doing this and not doing that. And that
Mhm.
continues to inform our practice.
Mhm.
Um,
We
and
love all the
so,
questions.
yeah,
No
yeah.
question is a dumb question, of course.
So just real quickly then about where we're going. So I showed you that timing sequence, and it's as random as that random generator, Bob, that I showed you in the code. Um, but nonetheless, it has kind of a fixed motor amplitude, a fixed pattern duration of 668 milliseconds, and fixed burst duration or buzz duration of 100 milliseconds. And we've since, over the past few months, developed an Android app that allows the patient. Oh, I should mention, so the computer now that's in your glove, in our glove, sorry, it has Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, so it can talk to your phone. So I've built an Android app with my students that allow you to start scanning for your glove, and then once it's scanned, you can change the motor amplitude, the pattern duration, and the burst duration. Of course, lots of people wonder, like, Steve, what should I turn them to, right? And so the answer is, well, turn them to the way that they're the most effective. That's not quite a legitimate answer. But the first two people that we're testing it right now, they've got neuropathies, and the motor intensity, which many of us find innocuous, they found, way too much stimuli. So they're able to dial down the motor amplitude um, to make it more comfortable. Now, Bob, to that point, when you dial down motor amplitude, you also dial down the frequency. And so we may not be hitting the sweet spot that Tass is asking for. But I'm getting positive feedback from both of these patients that even with significantly lower amplitude, it's almost imperceptible to me, to tell the truth. And they're still getting value out of the glove at those lower amplitudes. What I'm really after this year, friends, is basically to extend this app so that it tunes itself based upon data taken at home from we've now added measurement of gait and voice and muscle activity to this. It's just not yet in the real world, but in development stages. We know how to do this. And for me, kind of the one gold standard is this link, is kind of a self-regulating insulin pump, right? So instead of the diabetic pumping in insulin kind of subjectively, right? We can be measuring insulin levels and then try to equilibrate that. That's a much easier thing than what we're talking about here with Parkinson's. These are kind of indirect measurements, your voice, your gait, muscle activity. Those are indirect measurements about what's really going on upstairs. Um, and so this is an ambitious project to have something that kind of tunes the glove parameters. But we're putting kind of the software in place for doing that. And we're building and equipping sensors. We don't need to sell you a new Apple Watch because your glove already has Wi-Fi. You've got two gloves that can talk to each other as well as talk to your phone. Um, and so I see we're getting very close to the hour. So I just want to just quickly, and unfortunately maybe too quickly, talk about some of the most exciting parts of all this, right? Is Espanola GloveWorks is just a small social enterprise made up of volunteers, students, and teachers, all in service to people with Parkinson's. Um, so these arrows go in the direction that they go. The volunteers now have a small network where they support each other. They're doing a lot of the sewing offline and bringing us in the fabric. The teachers are supporting each other in beautiful ways. The students, as you heard from Chelsea, she learned from Jeremy, who learned from Afet. All of them are now on this kind of pipeline out of a challenged high school into some of the hardest majors they can do in reputable colleges. Um, and so this, and also through my Zoom club, or even what we're doing right now, people with Parkinson's actually, working together to better inform themselves about possible treatments, possible well-being. And so my hope as we go forward in this next year is to do a better job of kind of sustaining this connection between the Chelseas of the world and the folks that are here on the in Sharon's Zoom world. And I have a couple of models for doing that. I mean, so Strive PD, and that was a guest that Sharon had on, last year. It's a beautiful app for kind of logging symptoms and well-being and connecting you to health professionals. And I'm also interested in having students learn better how to assess the well-being and the symptoms of Parkinson's patients. Mhm. And then even kind of more closer to home, this a beautiful project called Project Echo in the state, which connects kind of rural healthcare providers with experts in medical centers. And I'm looking to add one more layer of service here, right? Of actually including students and teachers and volunteers into a second layer, right? So we've got experts in Albuquerque informing our healthcare providers in northern New Mexico, which are stretched too thin. And to connect them up with a social enterprise like Espanola GloveWorks just allows us to kind of densify this very, very sparse safety net we have for rural healthcare. So that's a too quick of a view through the last slides. I
Thank
really,
you,
really
thank you, thank you. We have a
thank you,
few
Sharon.
questions in the
Great.
chat. Chelsea's trying to answer them. I'll let her do that, continue doing that. This was very interesting. I think the social aspect of this, of bringing together the students and the people with Parkinson's and everybody working together is amazing. That's what drew me in, was how you were taking, you're giving these students a future.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it's just, yeah, and I was watching the people and the smiles on everybody's faces as Chelsea was describing what she did. I mean, everybody is reacting really positively to this. I can see it now. Am I right? Yeah. So kudos
Thank you,
to you. I
Sharon.
think, it's just you're providing a service in an area that was named last week as one of the worst areas in the country to live because of gang violence and other things, so we're talking about students in a very high at risk area getting encouraged to move on and study, as you said, with the students who really didn't think they were going to go to college and now are getting their degrees. So that's amazing.
Yeah, of course. And I didn't realize how much this project would actually help me in the long term. I got into college and I got my scholarship because of this project. And of course, like the writing portion that I got a lot of help from other older mentors. But for the most part, I think being able to learn a lot of skills like soldering and just like technical part of things is something that a lot of people are very scared of. You see, if you're not familiar with coding or engineering or the fabrication of things, the way that things are built, it's really intimidating and it can be very scary. And that's a little bit how I felt at first, but through the time and Steve being a wonderful teacher and having students my age be able to teach me really helped me realize that, most of the time things aren't difficult or as difficult as they seem. They can be, but once you learn how to explain it in a very easy and not so technical way, it becomes very, very easy to realize that it's not hard at all and that a lot of people can actually do it themselves as well. Um, but yeah, I also wasn't very sure if I wanted to go to college. And so then I hopped on this project and I was like, I would love to get some sort of engineering degree. And I just so happened to learn the other day that Steve also has an electrical engineering degree, which I didn't know, but um, I'm very excited. And again, I'm trying to answer your guys' questions in the chat with as much knowledge as I can. Um,
Well,
and
we
thank you
will,
so
and when
much.
we're finished here, we can stay on for a few minutes and people can ask you questions individually.
Oh, great.
Okay.
I'm glad.
All right, so I'm going to stop the presentation here. Thank you. It was really wonderfully informative. If you are interested in the gloves, you can go on the website and you can fill out an application. I did it this morning and it took like 2 minutes. And I guess they get in touch with you.
Yeah.
What's the website, Sharon?
EspanolaGloveWorks.com,
Um,
.org.
yeah, you just Google Espanola GloveWorks and it'll take you to it's a site at my college, so it's not we don't yet have an org or a com, but we're moving in that direction.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, Marina already put it in the chat.
Cool. Thanks, Marina.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank
and
you.
yeah, you can. you can fill out the form and they'll get in touch with you. And you're
Yeah.
asking for a donation to cover your costs.
Yeah, yeah. The current costs are 125 for kind of people in the U.S., 150 for international. We have got a couple of gloves already in Japan um, and a new participant in India.
Wonderful.
Steve, can you say how many people have the gloves now?
I think it's 30 or 30, maybe closer to 40 now. I had a 6 week road trip over the summer, and also the two teachers are also doing PDs. Classes resume this for me tomorrow, and so I'm going to get back into the swing of things. We have a bunch of a new inventory just came in, but so it's between 30 and 40, Linda. So yeah.
I can't get back to
Okay.
the.
All right. I want to just finish up here and then we can open up to any questions you want. So, Marina, if you can put my slides back up.
You get
Next week, you'll get a chance. One second. Next week on Thursday, a week from Thursday, it's not this coming week, it's the week after. Bill Plaschke, the LA Times sports columnist, will be joining us with his trainer, Jody Fould, who has developed a program at Kaizen Martial Arts that Bill goes to. As I said before, if you live in Southern California and you want to join us that day, you're welcome to. Just let me know that you're coming so I know how many people to expect. And then in September 7th, back on a Sunday morning, we're going to talk about the World Parkinson's Congress, about the scholarships that are available through Twitchy Woman. You can either donate to sponsor somebody to go, or you can apply for a scholarship if you're a first timer. And we will have several people who went with us in Barcelona 2.5 years ago. Can't believe it's been that long, 2 years ago. Be talking about their experience, and it's going to be very informative. And with that, the Twitchy Women grants are available now. If you go to the scholarship funds applications, you can fill those out. They're due by October 16th. We'll see how much money we have and how many people we can sponsor. We will have a fundraiser coming up in November, which you'll hear more about. But this is for women who are with Parkinson's who are attending for the first time. We hope that you've attended at least 3 Twitchy Women programs, either live or through on our YouTube channel, and you plan to share what you've learned after you get home. And and Turn 2 is an AI subscription for people with Parkinson's that's tailored to your needs. If you're interested, it's $2 a week. I think they charge $100 for the year or something like that. You can sign up, and the discount code is over because July is over. But there is a sign up. It's a really wonderful service that they provide. And I think that's pretty much it. We have our discussion groups, Tuesdays, Anything Goes with Shelley, and Sundays, Parkies Without Partners. We had a great meeting this morning. And that is it. We got back from Utah on Saturday, and the prize package was they had bobbleheads, personalized bobbleheads at the art fair. So I have my queen. They're really ugly, but it was fun. Everybody can be immortalized in a bobblehead.